Hi, I'm Ralph Bass, and I'd like to tell you about some books that I've written. I grew up a Baptist, and over the years I began to look at some other doctrinal options, and looking at them very seriously, I collected a great deal of notes, and I turned those into books. Now, the very first book I wrote is this one right here, What About Baptism? A discussion on the mode, candidate, and purpose of Christian baptism. I suppose that doctrine, quote-unquote, bothered me the most and caused me to look at it first. Now, during these years, I was a marriage and family counselor. And during this period, I wrote a lot of material that I've used as handouts for my counselees to help them address some of the problems of their marriage and problems of life. In time, I collected all those notes together and wrote this book, Hope for Today's Problem, the how-to book of Christian living. And I use that phrase how-to because it's a very practical book, and it indeed tells you specifically step by step how to do certain things to get solutions to your problems. You'll find in counseling that many books are written about in some vague sense what you should do, but not a detailed sense and how you should actually do it and what it takes to make it work. That could be very valuable to you. I also, in time, took a look at eschatology or prophecy. I'd always been a dispensational premillennialist, and I wasn't particularly comfortable with that. And after a great deal of research, I wrote a commentary in the book of Revelation entitled Back to the Future. And this book is unique in some ways because its thesis is that we have to go back about 2,000 years now to get to a point when most of the book of Revelation was in the future. The point being that John wrote this book about 64 AD, and he tells us that the content was soon to take place. And it did take place for the most part up through about chapter 19, and the 3.5-year period leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. So you may find this a very unique point of view, and it might be worth your time to perhaps get out of the rut of some of the other prophetic opinions that you've held and entertain something else. I found, surprisingly and uncomfortably, that most of the people I met in the Presbyterian church to which I was attending, including the deacons and the elders, only had a very vague idea about what Presbyterianism is all about. A large part of that reason is that it appears to me that the great majority of the people in the Presbyterian church today were former Baptists or other denominations, perhaps Methodists. And so they have a great interest in the Presbyterian church and its doctrines, but are not at all clear about what they are. So I wrote this book, Tell Me About Presbyterians. Just what do they believe? It's a very good, succinct statement on the distinctives of the Presbyterian church. It does not deal with general theology, general evangelical theology, things that we commonly believe as evangelicals, the virgin birth, the inspiration of the Bible. None of that is addressed, just those doctrines that are somewhat unique to the Presbyterian church. And then I had a continued interest in the subject of baptism, especially since I constantly was hearing that the word baptizo meant to immerse, and by that the person meant to dip. And I decided I'm going to take a look at that word in the Greek word being baptizo in the Greek literature. So going back 500 years before the birth of Christ and looking at the Greek literature, the philosophers and the historians and the writers of literature of various kinds, bringing it all the way up to the New Testament period, I searched out this word baptizo and how it was used, because there's no particularly new meaning to that word in the New Testament. It's the same basic meaning that it has existed for hundreds and hundreds of years prior to the New Testament period. This is that book, this is that research. You might find it fascinating. I'm writing other books as well, and they take a while, 2 or 3 years per book, if you're going to do deep research. And I do put a great deal of time and effort into the research. So I encourage you to take a look at these books and then contact me. Send me your articles. Send me your agreements or disagreements. I'd love to hear what you have to say and entertain a dialogue with you over it. Thank you. We'll see you later now. Bye.